ẹ wá lọ mú lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀yin obìnrin o, gbogbo obìnrin tí ò bá gbọ́rọ̀ sọ́kọ rẹ̀ lẹ́nu, ọkọ rẹ̀ ò ní kìí ṣe ọ̀ràn yẹn ní fọ́kọ láti tọ́jú rẹ̀ mọ́ o. Ọkọ yìí ní gbogbo owó tí mò ń fún ẹ, ìtọ́jú tí mò ń ṣe, màá dá dúró o. Tó o bá ti gbọ́rọ̀ sọ́kọ rẹ̀ lẹ́nu, o submit ara ẹ fọ́kọ ẹ, ọkọ rẹ̀ ń pè ẹ́ pé òun fẹ́ bọ́ ẹ bá ṣàṣepọ̀, o dá lóhùn. Èyí ò tiẹ̀ tó le díẹ̀. Ànábì sallallahu alaihi wasallam ó ní gbogbo obìnrin tí ọkọ rẹ̀ bá pè ipe wá sí wọ́n bọ̀ wá sórí bẹ́ẹ̀dì mi náà, àbó nídìí ẹ, o dá ọkọ rẹ̀ lóhùn, o sá ṣàgírí o kágírí mari náà ni. Tí èsì pé bóyá òun ṣe àìdì lọ́wọ́ tí ilé ó fi má, àmàlẹ́ kó máa ṣépè fún ẹni. Ìjọ tọkọ rẹ̀ bá tó yọ́nú sí ẹ, ìjọ ń ló torí yọ́nú Ọlọ́run. Gbogbo obìnrin tó bá kọ oorun fún ọkọ ẹ̀, gbogbo obìnrin tó bá kọ oorun fún ọkọ ẹ̀, àbí tó bá ní rísìn lókù, tó bá ní tó dùn mẹ́tọ́kọ ẹ̀ ń ṣe fún ẹ, sọ fún ni, sọ fún pé nǹkan báyìí sì mà bí wàá ṣe sọ fún, àbí kó wọ́n tẹ́ fi tún àárín yẹn ṣe. tó gbó ògbúrọ̀ mọ́sá ìgbọ́rọ̀ sọ́kọ rẹ lẹ́nu, àbí kó wá kọ oorun fún ọkọ rẹ ògbúrọ̀ ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀.
So this is how religious figures use religion to abuse women financially, sexually, spiritually, even emotionally. Because this is how what he is saying will actually play out in a woman's life. Financially, for the woman, imagine a woman who obeys her husband when he tells her not to work. So this woman gives up her financial independence because she was taught obedience is a virtue that guarantees peace in her home. And doing that is a form of obedience to God, right? So now, fast forward, if at any point the man feels she's no longer submissive or even submissive enough, so according to the logic of men like this, of religious figures like this, the man is suddenly not obliged to provide for her anymore. So based on that man's subjective feelings of a lack of submission, so it is ideal for that man to withhold financial resources. So in other words, the woman is punished for obeying him in the first place. That's what it is. You see, patriarchy is a male-centered system that manufactures and engineers a woman's vulnerability and still punishes the woman for it. It is a form of psychological bullying. Anyways, and it is very evident that religious figures like him use religion to position men as gatekeeper of financial resources, and women are reduced to dependence. So they force women into a position of constantly pleading for what they could have secured with their own potential. At the same time, they weaponize your vulnerability so to constantly put you in a state of compliance. So these men are insecure and they are very, very sadistic. As an adage in Yoruba, we say that because literally they play power politics with women's life in the name of marriage under the banner of religion. And I must say that indeed submission is the root of your abuse as a woman. So, and this ruling is promoting about financial provision does not exist in the Quran. What he is repeating is nothing than scholarly opinions produced in a patriarchal context, because people like him inherit and recycle such opinions as if that was a command from God. No, it is not a command from God. Those are their own assumptions and interpretations. And I must ask that who gave scholars the authority to turn their own personal assumptions into eternal religious obligations binding on Muslim women? So who ordained them to legislate over women's lives with rulings that the Quran itself never stated? So these human men are projecting their own insecurities, anxieties, desires, and thirst for power and control into the religion and stamping it with God's name. Because even outside religion, any reasonable, morally equipped person understands that it is unethical and plainly abusive to make provision conditional on submission simply because one party has economical resources. It is abuse. It is a form of abuse. There is no morality in such logic. It is exploitation and abusive. And which raises a deeper question. What is the role of faith in the lives of people who defend this thinking? If faith does not restrain the impulse to dominate, to coerce, or to weaponize dependence, then what ethical work is faith actually doing? Because the fixation of religious people on controlling another human being is deeply disturbing. It is disturbing. What is the essence of faith? What is the essence? So let's move on. Then he came up with this questionable anti-female hadith report in order to pressure women. So he used this hadith as a tool to coerce women into sexual acts with the very men who might have transgressed against them. I mean, scholars are supposed to know and do better, right? Unfortunately, that is not the case. That is not true. Because you see, misogynistic scholars wouldn't care whether hadith is questionable or not. They will use it regardless for their own misogynistic benefits. As a Muslim woman, if you want to read more about this hadith that he quoted, you can type this on Google and it will bring it out for you to read more about it, at least from a female perspective. So, in the sense of reasoning of men like this, they have reduced a woman's hurt to stubbornness. And according to the logic of men like this, a woman that is engaging in sexual intimacy is submitting herself. So it is only the woman who is framed as a passive object that sex is done to. So the psychology of men like this is clear. They see women as inferior, as objects of sexual access. They don't see women as equal participants in intimacy. Yes. So because men like this, they feel entitled to burden a woman with a burden that was never the woman's to carry. So, according to him, the woman must be desperate enough to reconcile with the husband, no matter what. And she has to find every means possible to reconcile with the man because the angels will curse her if she doesn't meet his sexual demands, right? Abby, in their own logic, the women are created as vessels for their penises. They regard women for that only, just to regulate their sexual needs. So, let us examine these two verses. Of course, it has a revelatory context, but it can still be useful for this discussion because this ayah was revealed when people of Medina came to the prophet asking about sexual intimacy during menstruation, and at the same time, there was a widespread belief among some Jewish communities in Medina that certain sexual positions would result in abnormal or defective offspring. So the Quran responds to this claim by dismantling the superstitions. Anyway, I emphasized the context because some people distort the first line of the first line of this verse to firstly assume it grants male non-consensual access to a woman. So what misogynistic scholars consistently ignored: send forth good for yourselves. So a directive in place that places responsibility on the man to approach intimacy with good manners. So a woman's sexual receptivity is not extracted through pressure or entitlement. The burden of intimacy does not lie on a woman's desperation to comply, but on a man's obligation to create a sexual space of mutual willingness, dignity, and emotional safety. Yes. So the patterns that we see here is that they use anti-female hadith to reward domination and suppress accountability. They use external material to override Quranic ethos. So they blame the woman for a conflict that she didn't create. They weaponize punishment narrative from hadith to force emotional and sexual compliance of the woman. So literally, they turn a woman's dignity into leverage for male desire. And I ask, where is the justice in that? Where is the justice in that? Where is the dignity of the woman in all of this? In such rhetoric. And the irony about Muslim men like this is that they hate women. These men hate women enough that the only way or the only thing that they can speak about when they are talking about women is in contempt and reduce women to obedience and bodily availability only. And they are shameless because they display no hesitation in demanding access in a manipulative way, though, to the very being that they have already stripped of dignity. I must say that they are vile human beings. So they turn the culture of entitlement into religion, a system where men feel divinely justified in extracting what they want, while women are told that their worth is measured by how much condescension they can tolerate in the name of God. I ask again, where is the woman's dignity as human being in all this person has said? Where is the justice in a woman made to bear the burden of securing the sexual need of our oppressor, of a man that has transgressed against her? This is religious narcissism. This is religious narcissism at its finest. And I must say that I'm hungry. I am hungry. So women, do well to read. So do well to check what I said earlier on Google. Read more, identify those hadiths, identify them, know them for yourself. Stop relying on sermons to understand everything. You have to read by yourself also. Some might sound interesting, they might romanticize it in sermons and all, but when you read something for yourself and you sit down and you process it, that is empowerment. You are able to process things by yourself, develop your critical thinking skills.